What if I told you the United States has already erased its national debt once? And almost no one alive today knows how they did it? Not through budget cuts, not through tax hikes, not through discipline, sacrifice, or miraculous growth. They did it using a financial mechanism so subtle, so elegant, and so brutally effective that it wiped out half the nation's debt while the public applauded and waved flags. And now, right now, that same mechanism is reawakening. Quietly, surgically. Inevitable. If you have a savings account, if you own bonds, a pension, insurance, or even just cash in the bank, you're about to play a role in the largest wealth transfer of the 21st century, whether you want to or not. This story begins almost a century ago, but it ends in your lifetime. Because the Federal Reserve and the U.S. Treasury, two institutions that are supposed to balance each other, are drifting back into the same alignment they entered during World War II. When they last aligned, debt vanished. Wealth evaporated, savers were gutted, and the government walked away clean. Today, U.S. debt isn't $269 billion like 1946. It's over trillions, and rising so fast, economists have stopped pretending it will ever be paid back. So the government is turning to a playbook it only uses when its back is against the wall. A playbook that rewrites the rules of money itself. Before we understand what's coming, we need to go back to the moment this strategy was born. Picture Washington, D.C., April 1942. The world at war, gasoline rationing, factories roaring 24 hours a day, the United States government bleeding money faster than at any point in its history. Inside the Federal Reserve Building, two men sit across from each other. Mariner Eccles, chairman of the Federal Reserve. Henry Morgenthau Jr., secretary of the Treasury. They are not meeting about battlefield logistics. They are not discussing tanks, planes, or troop deployments. Morgenthau presents the problem. America needs money now. Billions of dollars, month after month for years. Eccles presents the solution. Control the price of money itself. The tool they used has a polite name, but behind closed doors, economists called it what it truly was: financial repression. What it means is this: no matter how high inflation went, no matter how dangerous the economy became, the government could borrow money at a fixed, artificially low rate. And Americans, patriotic, terrified, determined, bought billions of dollars of war bonds. But here's the hidden twist. Inflation during the war ran 6% to 8%, sometimes higher, meaning every American who bought those bonds was losing purchasing power every single year. You lend the government $100. You end up with money that buys the equivalent of $96, or $93, or even less. They thought they were saving. In reality, they were experiencing forced wealth erosion, a quiet transfer of value from citizens to the government. From 1942 to 1951, the Fed kept long-term Treasury yields pinned to 2.5%. Real interest rates averaged 3.2% for nearly a decade, negative for years. This was not an accident. It was not a mistake. It was government policy, and it worked. In 1946, U.S. government debt sat at $269 billion, 119% of GDP. By 1955, debt was still around $275 billion. Barely changed. But the debt-to-GDP ratio had collapsed to 71%. The government hadn't paid anything down. They didn't have to. They simply devalued the debt. This is the magic trick. When inflation rises and interest rates are held artificially low, debt becomes smaller and smaller relative to the size of the economy. You don't pay it back. You let it melt away. The technical term, inflating the debt away. The human term, the silent theft of savings. Fast forward to today, look at these facts. U.S. national debt is historically large. Annual interest payments are exploding. Raising taxes won't fix it. Cutting spending won't fix it. Economic growth can't outrun it. Every serious economist quietly acknowledges the same truth. The U.S. will never pay back its debt. It will repeat the 1940s playbook. And the signs are already appearing. 1. The Fed is re-entangling with the Treasury. Emergency programs, bond buying. Liquidity injections, direct backstopping. Exactly what happened in the 1940s. Real interest rates are back negative and expected to stay there. Inflation-adjusted returns on savings accounts, negative bonds, often negative. The erosion is already underway. 3. New financial tools make repression easier than ever. In the 1940s, the government needed propaganda and war bonds. Today, It needs digital treasuries, bank reserve requirements, capital controls, interest rate management, regulatory pressure, and potentially digital dollars. The mechanisms are streamlined, invisible. Automatic FIR demographics demand it. An aging population requires Social Security, Medicare, pensions, healthcare spending, all paid for by a shrinking base of working-age taxpayers. Inflation plus yield suppression is the only path left that doesn't involve political suicide. So, how exactly will this modern version unfold? Let's break the 21st century playbook down. Step 1. Inflate, not hyperinflation. Not chaos. Just persistent, steady, unavoidable inflation in the 3% to 5% range. Enough to slowly eat away the real value of debt. Not enough to cause riots. Exactly like 1942-1951. Step 2. Cap interest rates. Not explicitly, not publicly, but through regulatory incentives, bond buying, liquidity windows, capital requirements. Forward guidance rates appear market-driven, but in reality, the market is gently, persistently guided. Real rates fall negative, savings melt, debt shrinks. Step 3. Force capital into government debt. In the 1940s, it was war bonds. Today, it's pension regulations, banking rules, insurance requirements, money market constraints, liquidity coverage ratios. Trillions must hold treasuries by law. No choice, no escape. Step 4. Let savers pay the bill. Not through taxes, through inflation. If inflation is 4% and your savings yield 2%, you lose 2% of your wealth each year. The government gains it quietly, automatically. This is financial repression. And it is already happening. Just like in the 1940s and 1950s, the debt-to-GDP ratio will shrink. The nominal debt may barely move. Savers will lose purchasing power. The government will regain control. And when people finally realize what happened, it will already be over. Because financial repression is not a law, not a vote, not a policy you can protest. It is a background condition of the monetary system. You don't see it happening day to day. But 10 years later, you wake up, and half your purchasing power is gone. And the national debt? Magically manageable again? The question isn't if the United States will use financial repression again. It already is. The real question, the only question, is, will you be one of the people whose wealth is used to fund it? Because in every era, from 1942 to today, one thing never changes. When governments need to eliminate debt, they don't default on themselves. They default on you.